And for more on this, let's bring in Robert Bianchi. He's a criminal defense and trial attorney, also the former head county prosecutor in New Jersey. Robert, so we've got the breaking news about Jim Comey will testify. How significant is that?
Well, I think that they came to a resolution because, typically speaking, a court is not going to get involved in Congress's business. It's called the political question doctrine. In other words, Congress has a right to conduct its business so long as it sees fit. And this judge basically said, Eric, you're not saying that the inquiry is inappropriate, and what authority do I have to get in the middle of what Congress does? Now, here it seems like they struck a compromise. Comey was worried about the fact that it's going to be leaked and only portions of his statements are going to come out, and that there's been manipulations and deceptions. But apparently the Republicans have agreed with him that within 24 hours after you testify, you can release the transcript and you can speak to the media. So it kind of ameliorates or lessens the concerns that Comey's team had.
What do you think his defense will be? What do you think he would say in the way he dealt with this investigation?
I think he's going to say he dealt with the investigation appropriately. Now, I commented a lot on the Hillary Clinton email scandal, and what people tend to do is they look at these things from the prism of politics as opposed to the law. And even though you may trip over a law and do something that is not necessarily correct, does not mean with prosecutorial discretion they're going to go after you for a mistake like that. They want to be able to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt with corroborating evidence. So when Comey gave his statement, it was almost like a hit I think I may have done with you or somebody else on Fox News to say, this is exactly where this is going to come down, and it's exactly what Comey did. There was nothing unusual about his reasoning. Him giving the statement, that's another issue.
So, yeah, do you think they're going to try to really pick apart his reasoning for giving Hillary Clinton a pass and not prosecuting her?
Yeah, I think so. I think they're going to say that he was skewed. Now, remember, at the time, everybody was very elated by Mr. Comey from the Republican side and from the Trump campaign because he went out and gave that unbelievable statement that I think was inappropriate. That was something that should have been left with the Attorney General, not the person that's doing the investigation. Nevertheless, they're going to look into the things that you missed, the things that you did not take into consideration, and they're going to try to make an argument that he tried to whitewash, if you will, this investigation. And, of course, looming in the background, and on both sides, there are equal opportunity problems, is this tarmac meeting with Loretta Lynch and Clinton that just led a really bad taste in people's mouths as to whether or not the integrity of the investigation was appropriate.
Meanwhile, you've got Michael Cohen apparently lying again or admitting to that, and then you've got Manafort, the prosecutors accusing him of lying. I mean, what are they lying about? You got the Trump Tower project apparently in development in Moscow during the campaign. The president says there's nothing wrong with that. Do you think there is? And what could be behind all this? Was it part of trying to get sanctions off the VEB bank, that Russian bank, and they didn't want anybody to know?
I think it could be that. It could also be political. But there were certain things that were going on during the course of that deal that could implicate crimes with regard to operating with a sanctioned bank, and as well, after you get elected but before you're sworn in, dealing with the Russians with regard to policy issues. And watch Flynn on this because it's been deadly silent, and that's one of those. Yes. That's one of those things you got to. It hasn't been sentenced, and he's been silent, and he knows a lot about the internal workings between America and Russia.
So, what do you think in terms of Flynn? That he is someone, as you point out, who we've not heard really anything from.
Right. So I think that he's important in that capacity. Eric, just like the Clinton email scandal, if they cannot make a strong, solid connection beyond the information they're getting from Michael Cohen. In other words, remember, with the Trump Tower meeting, they found emails that suggested that this was about the Magnitsky Act and getting that removed, and that they're getting dirt for Hillary Clinton. Same thing with regard to all these other issues. There seems to be people lying about it, and then there's proof that shows that what they said was not accurate. Now, the question becomes, that doesn't necessarily establish a link of collusion. But when you're dealing with the Trump Tower meeting and you're dealing with this issue with Corsi and Stone with regard to their involvement with WikiLeaks and Assange, that starts to ratchet up prosecutors thinking, there's something nefarious here. And of course, prosecutors say, if you're lying, there must be a reason you're lying. The question becomes, are you lying because of political damage, or are you lying to cover up a crime?
Stone, of course, just said today that, he didn't have any contact with him, but people are lying.
And there have been contradictory statements he's made about that.
Yes, yeah, we'll have to see. Bob, good to see you.
You got it, Eric.
As always.